Hello and welcome to Marsh's Library for Open House 2020. We're going to take our first step inside the library here, or rather up the front stone steps of the library. These are not original to the building. These were added during the 1860s, as well as the front porch that we're coming up to now. And these were paid for by Benjamin Lee Guinness. These additions were done basically as the library was entering into a phase of financial difficulty. The government did offer financial assistance, however, we would have to move the collection to where the National Gallery is now. Benjamin Lee Guinness heard about our trouble and basically saved the day by creating this new entrance. We're now going up the internal staircase. You can see some of the features here. So the only other type of this staircase can be seen in Mansion House, and this is one of the Dublin City architects' favourite features about the building. So you can see the little twists and turns there. We're just walking up into the front landing now. You can see our benefactors, and I'll show you our list of librarians in a moment. So this section is all internal to the library. You can see all of our previous librarians above the door there. So some more details here. And what we'll now do is we can enter in to our beautiful first gallery. So we'll just walk inside the first gallery now. And we'll just take a second to just take it all in. So the first gallery started being built in 1701 and was completed by 1705. What you see in front of you are the original bookcases which have survived to this day. The books are kept in the same positions as they were when the library opened. We are one of the few buildings in Dublin that is still used for the original purpose, as we are still a working public library. We'll just take a couple steps in further. So the books are in the original places. You can see some of the shelves where they're bowing ever so slightly with the weight of the books. The bookcases themselves have lasted very well, and they are made from a single piece of oak. So the oak was shipped here from the Baltics via the Netherlands, and the shelves carved from them. If we take a little closer look at this bay in particular, the bookshelves have lasted very well throughout the years. However, we did have issues with this particular one, where it started leaning away from the wall, and you can see the small hole that it made in the floor. We did get in our experts, and the bookcase was pushed back, connected with a cable, and is now safely placed back up. So there is a gap between the shelves and the wall, which allows air to travel very freely throughout the building. The building gets well ventilated, and it means any damp that could come off the wall is not coming towards the shelves. You can see a really good example here in particular, where you can clearly see the wall and the shelf quite a distance away from it. The library was designed by Sir William Robinson, who also designed the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham. And we'll just take a look up at the founder of the library. So he's up here. So this is Narcissus Marsh, who paid for the library to be built. He was an English clergyman, came to Dublin to take over the role of Provost of Trinity, and in 1694 became the Archbishop of Dublin when he had this library built. What we'll do now is we're coming up to the doors of the old reading room, so we'll learn a little bit more in there. So let's take a step inside. So we refer to this room as the old reading room, and this is due to the fact this is where scholars studied up until July 2012. At that point, we made a decision to move our readers downstairs where they would have more privacy to research. This is because when we were getting an increase in visitors, they would see the scholars studying in this room, get very excited, and ask them a lot of questions, which is not great when you are trying to write your PhD. So we'll just take a little look around. These books belong to the first librarian, Elias Buero. So here you can see a number of his vellum books, as well as some of our minifigures waiting to say hello. And then over here, you'll notice quite a few modern books. So these shelves are a bit different. This one in particular. This bookcase isn't original, as I'm sure you guessed. This was added in the 1980s, and that is because it is covering up something. And what it's covering up is in fact an old fireplace. So during winter, we're allowed a little bit more heat in this room because the books have adapted to it due to that fireplace. It did mean at one point, though, that our insurance company said we had to stop lighting fires because we're surrounded by books and wood. And so we decided to cover up the old fireplace, so that is not a problem that we have today. Then I'll just introduce you to some people we have up above. So we have a couple of these busts located around the room. So here we have Archbishop Whately, who was an Archbishop of Dublin. Up above here we have Alexander Pope. This young boy is Unknown Roman Boy. Here we have Cicero. So our oldest book is a copy of Cicero's letters that was printed in 1472 in Milan. Here we have in the corner, we have Molière, and straight above us is Mr. Shakespeare himself. And then I'm just going to show you a piece of furniture in front of us now. So this is the table that was used by the scholars. We're not sure exactly when it arrived at the library, but we do know it was here from about the 1890s onwards. It is likely that a young Bram Stoker studied here in the 1860s, but we know for definite that a young James Joyce studied at this table in 1902. And there you go. So, where we're going to go to now is down into the second gallery. So let's head on in. So, in the second gallery of the library, you'll probably notice a few differences between this one and the first. So, this section of the library we believe was built later, in about 1708 to 1709. Not only this, but you'll see that it actually has a flat ceiling as opposed to a vaulted ceiling like in the first gallery. So the vaulted ceiling, we believe, was done as part of the renovations by Benjamin Lee Guinness. And this gallery is probably when funds were running a bit lower as well, hence why it's smaller with a flat roof. As well as this, the second gallery had a different architect. So instead of William Robinson, it was Thomas Berg who designed the second gallery. Just take a second to have a little look around. So the books on the left-hand side here belong to Marsh himself. So 1713, he passed away and left his books to the library. On the right-hand side, we have the collection of John Stern, who was an Irish bishop. He passed away 1745 and left his collection to the library then. Now, what you notice in the second gallery as well is that we still have the original reading bays. Now, these seats were in the first gallery. However, they were removed and sold in 1763 to raise funds for the library. They still remain, as you can see, in the second gallery. So what we can do is actually see what it was like to have a seat in here. You have this lovely view in front of you. Now, I can tell you for a fact these seats are very uncomfortable. However, what we realized was you're sitting in amongst the bays, you're sort of tucked away. As you can see, someone would be looking down the gallery from the reading room, but they mightn't have the best view of you. And these books are very valuable. So you'll find you might take a couple books here and there, putting them in your bag, and run out of the library, which is what a lot of people did. In the first 60 years of the library, we lost about 800 books to theft. And that is why we stopped using these reading seats altogether. And from then on, you could read in the reading room, at the table and be supervised, or you could be locked in one of our lovely 3 cages here. You were given a bell, so once you were done, you could ring the bell and then be eventually released. This is also the coldest part of the library, just to let you know. We no longer take requests. I say that, we never took requests to be locked in the cage. As you can imagine, it's a nightmare for health and safety. And then, just to point out one last feature here, is that we have a door suspended above the staircase, you can see. So this used to connect the library to the Archbishop's Palace. That palace is now the old Kevin Street Garda station, and the passageway was demolished in 1833. However, it did mean that Marsh was able to pop over to the library whenever he wanted to make sure everything was still up to his standard. The door can still open, it's bricked up behind it, and occasionally does open, sometimes by itself, but we just like to think that it's Marsh checking back in, making sure everything is still up to his standard. And what we'll do now is I'm going to bring you into the garden of the library and talk a little bit more there. So thankfully it has stopped raining, so I can bring you into the garden of Marsh's library. So the garden is normally closed off to the public, apart from certain festival days, or more recently when we developed a one-way system throughout the library. So as you can see, the garden is in very good condition. We do have a gardener on site, and as you can see, she's doing an excellent job. It also gives us the chance to have a different point of view of the building itself. So for example, you can see here, that's the second gallery where we walked along. Beneath it, those are not the original windows to the library. These were another addition during those renovations by Benjamin Lee Guinness. So those windows are 19th century. However, over here, beneath the first gallery, we have the old keeper's apartments. It was basically the case that staff would live on site. The keeper would reside on the lower floor. This is not the case anymore. These apartments have since been converted into much needed office space, but you can see the windows that have been here since around 1703 to 1705. Between them, then you can notice the buttresses, which once again were a Guinness renovation. Just take one final little look around, just to absorb it. Let's see just what a nice day it is today. And now what we're going to do is we're going to finish up in the garden, and I'm going to show you one final room in Marsh's, which is generally not open to the public, so this will be a special little treat. Okay? So let's take a look inside the reading room. So this is a room that's generally not open to the public. It's our scholars and our readers who have made appointments to look at the collections who are seated down here. Now this, as I mentioned before, used to take place in the upstairs room up until July 2012. After that, the readers were moved downstairs to the stern room. This room here was part of the keeper's apartments up until 2019, and that's when we moved the reading room into here. The bookcases that you see around you were specially designed for the collection of Reverend Godfrey Everth, and they were donated to the library in 1918. And the table you see before you was given to us by the OPW. Now, as you can also see, the librarian has very kindly laid out a couple of plans for the library for us. So this is a plan dated from 1708, and here we can see the first gallery, reading room, and then this section here is marked as a plot of ground designed for an addition to the library. And we also see the letter A here, where it's stated, A is a small tower belonging to the Archbishop's Palace, designed for an observatory to be joined to the library. So not completed yet. But if we look over here at a plan dating 1709, we'll see the full completion of the library. this little section marked E, and that's where it says, "It is a small tower belonging formerly to the Archbishop's Palace, now joined to the library." So at this point, we can probably safely say the library was completed by 1709. So that basically sums up our tour for Open House 2020. We hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you next year. Bye-bye.